Alright, rather than me sitting and doing a lot of tapping with using my iPad, I'm going to do this video. A gentleman on Rimfire Central has asked a question. Is a 17 Hm2 inherently more accurate than a 22 long rifle? Well, you can't answer that question. You can have good shooting 17 Hm2s, you can have lousy ones, you can have mediocre, and same goes with 22 long rifles. What about the Hm2 over the 22 long rifle? Well, if all you're ever going to do is hunt in real thick brush and you can't see more than about 50 or 60 yards, you might as well just go ahead and probably stick with your 22 long rifle. But if that's not the case, the Hm2 with leaves off has some serious advantage, okay? I've put a lot of meat on the ground, boys, with the Hm2 in the last, 5 years? Y'all can go look at it. I've showed about everything I've killed with a Hm2. Trajectory. You got a squirrel, even if you're a real good shot with a good shooting 22 long rifle, if you've got a squirrel in the woods at 75 yards and he's hopping around on the ground with the leaves off and he goes 5 yards farther away from you in just a flash, and you're fixing to lose him because you won't be able to see him anymore, okay, you've got to figure in that 5 yards with that 22 long rifle. That's big. That Hm2, aim and fire. That's just one scenario. Also, your shooting angle is going to drive that trajectory of that 22 long rifle probably a little more too, okay? Steeper angle shots. Now, here's another thing that where it has advantage, and this is just basic common sense. If we had equally accurate 17 Hm2s, we'll just use 100 yards and 22 long rifles. They both behave in the wind about the same. That 17 caliber bullet is smaller in diameter, so it's going to have less chance of hit the gaps. Just law of averages says it will not be deflected as much by contacting a twig, a branch, or a leaf. Not to mention, it's going to follow your line of sight more so versus the 22 long rifle. You can literally see a squirrel in the woods and you can't even make the shot with a 22 long rifle because of an obstruction. Because the bullet's going to come so far over the line of sight. It's very possible, okay? So yeah, you gotta hit a squirrel to harvest it. Can you wound a squirrel with an Hm2? Yes, but I'm gonna tell y'all something right now. I've had a super duper high success rate on hit squirrels with an Hm2 at distance, okay? Super high success rate. Shooting off a trigger stick, shooting off of trees, leaves off. Now I see one person has made a comment. Oh, 99% of the squirrels shot with the Hm2 are shot inside of 50 yards. Well, let me, newsflash, not to me, not for me, they're not. Why is that? Because there's places that I hunt. Hell, I'm 50, 60, 70 yards out in a field walking around the woods. So I'm going to have to, unless the squirrel is out in the field, if he's in the woods, I'm going to have to make a 70 to 100 yard shot generally. Okay? That's the luxury of the 17 Hm2. You can play off of where the squirrels are. Distance means everything with leaves off. Okay? Squirrels have grand eyesight. So you're playing off of the squirrel so they can't hear you as much and they have a lower chance of spotting you. Leaves off around here, you are not going to do as good with a 22 long rifle as you are at Hm2, okay? Both highly accurate. or very accurate or shoot well or whatever. You just are not going to do it. I can't do it. And what I mean by that is I would have to approach the hunting situation, the areas, different with a .22 long rifle. I'm not going to be walking 70 yards off the woods field line. Not going to happen. And like I said, when you got a squirrel foraging on the ground, if he moves 5 yards on your ass, you know what that means, right? There's quite a bit of difference in the trajectory on a .22 long rifle between 70 and 75, 70 and 74, 70 and 76. At Hm2, you put that crosshair on that squirrel and touch that trigger. And if there's no wind, or you hadn't played the wind or what, you know, he's probably going bye-bye. Now, I've got this trigger cam now. I was showing squirrels using a handheld camera. I would even zoom in and show some of them flopping shot some pretty long distances over the last 2 or 3 years with an Hm2 with the VMAX ammo. Okay. So I've seen the Hm2 up close on multiple seasons, multiple squirrels. Hundreds of squirrels. You can go look at these squirrels in that thread I've got over there on Rimfire Central in the hunting subsection. Okay. Now remember now, we're talking leaves off. There are some leaves on situations an Hm2 could have advantage, okay? But it would depend on the landscape, the timber setup, and it might even just depend on what the squirrels are eating. Okay? You can see a squirrel in a buckeye tree a long ways away, because the leaves fall off them things pretty early. An oak tree, no cigar. Oaks are about the last, oaks and beeches are the last trees to lose leaves after the cold weather sets in. So you're not going to get a lot of distance on them generally unless it's in the edge of a field. And I've had some success with an Hm2 with leaves on this year with some big oaks in the setting out in fields. I can make 70-yard shots with a .22 long rifle, a good shooting one. But when you're out in the woods in the wild, to be honest with you, using a laser rangefinder, you don't always get to laser the squirrel very precise because of obstacles. And that's if the squirrel is sitting still. So all you're really looking for if you're using an Hm2 is you laser and you're like, okay, he's not outside of 85 or 90 yards, I'm good to go. That's what you're looking for with one of those guns generally, 80, 85 yards. If it gets farther than that, the way I zero my guns, I need to be dialing that scope a little bit. So you may not be able to, you may not know exactly how far the squirrel is because you can't get a laser in there, but you can move around the hill a little bit and find an opening and do a very good estimation to make sure you're not in out in la la land and you need to dial the scope. See, you got a hole for a .22 long rifle. You got to be thinking about a 65-yard shot with that gun. You don't have to think about a damn 65-yard shot with a damn Hm2. You point the damn gun at him, get the crosshairs on him, touch the trigger, and watch what happens to him. 55 yards, depending on how you've got that gun set up. You may have to be doing something with that .22 long rifle. I've been there and done all this stuff. I've played with them. A lot of time in the woods, boys. Been looking at a lot of squirrels, harvested a lot of squirrels. So there's no real answer to that gentleman's question. Leaves off, Hm2. If you've got a good shooting one, and you've got some good ammunition that it'll shoot, it has advantage. As long as you've got hunting situations where you can take advantage of it. Some of these woods, like down in Mississippi, it's thick. you know, pine trees down there and stuff, you know, there's a lot of greenery down there. It don't get as jet as it does here where I live or up in the Midwest or the Northeast. So you may not be able to take advantage of one of those guns so much. It may not be worth your while. Groundhogs, 17 Hm2 is a very good round on a groundhog. Shot one today, 74 yards. With a 22 long rifle, you would have to laser that groundhog. I knew that groundhog wasn't 85 or 90 yards when I shot him. So I put the crosshairs on that head and it was goodnight Irene. Just like it would be in the squirrel woods. So yeah, you're going to have some very good shooting 22 long rifles out there, okay? But you got to hit what you're aiming at, and trajectory is based on distance. And you may not be able to figure out what the distance is. And remember, you got to do all this shit quick. You know, the squirrel may not sit there and eat for 15 minutes in the same spot. And sometimes you got to take some time even with an Hm2, but that would be on a farther squirrel, one that's out there about 120, 115 yards. But remember, he's far away from you, so if he slips around and moves away from you a little bit, he's still in range. Or if he comes closer and goes around the hill, he's still in range. But depending on how far he moves, you may have to re-laser when he gets that far away. Even that gun you would have to re-laser. But all that shit, 85 yards and closer, nah, there ain't no laser with that gun. You just get on him. If you got it zeroed right, you get on him and get through that trigger smooth. That's going to conclude the video. I hope you enjoyed.